Hello and welcome to The Ukraine Shelf, a podcast hosted by the UCL Institute for European Studies, produced in collaboration with UCL School of Slavonic and East European Studies and the Ukrainian Institute, London, and supported by the British Academy. I'm Uilleam. I'm an associate professor in Ukrainian and East European culture at UCL, and alongside me in the studio is my co-presenter and co-creator of the podcast, Olesya Khromeychuk, an author, historian, and the director of the Ukrainian Institute, London. Hello, Olesya.
Hello. We are very glad to be back with a new episode after a short break and eager to discuss all the best books on Ukraine in English, but also think about the books that should be translated from Ukrainian. In each episode, we talk to authors about their books and get recommendations for books by others that we should read in order to understand Ukraine and its place in the world.
Please do check out our previous podcast episodes, which you can find via the UCL European Institute website, the YouTube channels of the European Institute and the Ukrainian Institute London, or on SoundCloud, Spotify, and all the usual platforms. Today, we are very excited to be joined by two brilliant authors who've written about Ukraine. Luke Harding is a journalist, a writer, and award-winning correspondent with The Guardian. He's the author of 9 books of non-fiction, several of which focus on Ukraine and Russia. He was the Guardian bureau chief in Moscow from 2007 to 2011 before being deported from Russia for his critical reporting. He has also reported extensively from Ukraine, and his book Invasion, the inside story of Russia's bloody war and Ukraine's fight for survival, was published in 2022 by Faber. And his new book, Betrayal, Trump, Putin and the New Age of Conquest, will be published with Faber in August 2026. Myroslav Laiuk is a novelist, a poet, a non-fiction writer. Before the full-scale invasion, he had written 3 books of poetry and 3 novels. Since 2022, he has travelled extensively in the frontline areas of Ukraine and has published 2 books of war reportage. Bakhmut in 2023, which is published in English by Ukrainer, a book about one of the key cities on the front line of the war and the people who lived and who fought there. And also a book called Spysky in Ukrainian, Lists 2025, not yet translated into English. And Myroslav received the Shevelov Prize for Non-Fiction in 2024 and was shortlisted for the BBC Ukraine Book of the Year Award and the Peterson Literary Prize in the same year. Welcome, Luke and Myroslav.
Hi. Hi.
Myroslav, let us start with you. You were not a war writer before 2022. You wrote poetry and fiction. Tell us a little bit about that transition from that kind of writing to war reportage. In Bakhmut, you actually compare war reportage to poetry, which I found fascinating.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here. Thank you for invitation. Before 2022, I was just a poet and novelist. And after the full-scale invasion, I had this intention that I should write something because it's my main skill, yes, to write, my way of existence, to write, to transform reality into text, yes, adding some shape that depends on my aesthetic and ethics. And I realized that all my poems are I had a feeling that this poetry is helplessness, yes, that I can't do something with this poetry, yes. I can do something with myself, yes, because poetry helps yourself to make some stability, yes, to put your emotions into one line or several lines, but not something that could be relevant for your society. That's why I started to write some small or longer essays about relations between Russia and Ukraine, because at the beginning I had this feeling that we need to explain really a lot about Ukraine to foreign audience. We need to explain. At the beginning I wrote an article about Stalin's terror in Ukraine and about our main poets who were killed by this system, and I wrote about Volodymyr Svidzinski. It's one of the biggest poets of 40 million people nation, yes. And I wrote this article, and in this article there was a fact that he died because he was burned in a shed by Soviets. and I needed several days to. They tried to find some proofs, and there were no proofs in English, in French language, in German language, because there were no books about this. That's why I decided that I should write more and more and more. And just explain that Russia is not Ukraine, Ukraine is not Russia, and they have no rights to invade us. Yes, and after that I realized that it's not enough for myself yet. I'm not talking about some things that I must do or something like this. It's like about feeling yourself as a writer. As a writer, you should understand your reality, and you should be in the most decision-making places, yes, if you want to be a writer. That's why and also you should find the form that fits you the best. That's why I understand that the most relevant form for me is reportage, and I began this way of war correspondent, and I was working in and I'm working till now. From I don't know. This book is from Bakhmut. This book is mostly about the beginning of spring 2023, when this city was almost captured, and after that captured by Wagner's, by Russians. And in my new book, there are some episodes from the first days of. When Russians destroyed dump in Kherson. Today they also destroyed a dump in Kharkiv Oblast. And it's also a book about Pokrovsk a year ago, about Kharkiv, then when Russians destroyed a part of their main building, historical building, and so on. And I realized that reportage is my new poetry.
How interesting. And you speak so well about finding the right form for the right subject matter. But are you still able to write poetry too?
Yeah, sometimes I write poetry, but for me it's something... if to look through the history, we know that after every big battle, every big world war, the humanity is trying to form a new language, yes, a new language of poetry. And I'm asking myself, what is this new language? And for me, the main language for poetry now, is the most simple language, the language of this moment. That's why very often I understand that making poetry beautiful with a lot of nice images and metaphors and rhymes, yes, it's like a hypocrisy, yes. It's for me the most honest poetry is very simple poetry, when you just trying to catch the moment, yes, when you are talking with some guys in a basement in Pokrovsk, and you understand that everything they are talking now, it's a line of a poetry. Yeah. Okay.
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that. I mean, I wrote a piece for the Guardian a while back, having talked to various poets, and I was really struck by Alexander Muched's book, The Language of War. And he says the same, Myroslav. He says that this kind of aestheticizing impulse that you might have to play with form, to be clever, to show off, to be artistic, it just feels wrong in a time of war. And I think the most moving chapter of Muched's book is where he just examines the symbol plus or plus in Ukrainian, which basically means I'm okay. So if you're a wife or a mother or a father and you message someone on the front line and you don't hear back, and then 8 hours later you get plus signifies everything. It signifies love, hope, existence, and the Ukrainian poetry is incredibly powerful. I mean, it's one of the. I mean, you wouldn't wish it to be like this, but it's one of the things that has really, I think, flowered. And it's interesting if you think about where the UK is, and I've been to poetry readings in Lviv where there are 400 people crowded into a basement listening to a poet reading poems. I mean, there's something about war and art that our art has a special role and a special responsibility.
And I was really impressed that I have found a lot of poetry lines in your book, especially, for example, Irina Shuvalova's poems. It was really incredible, I think so.
Yeah.
And yet you deal in the literature of fact. It's reportage, journalism, not in creative genres. I mean, have you ever, and I want to ask you about your books in a second, but have you ever thought of writing in other genres about the things that you've experienced?
I mean, that's a really interesting question, because I work for The Guardian, some of my colleagues have done novels. And to me, that feels like a crime, because your whole journalistic brain, and I'm quite old school, so I've got shorthand. I mean, obviously I can tape stuff as well, but I actually find it helps in the era of AI and, the ubiquitous gnome, if you actually take notes and you think critically about what's going on. And then, of course, it's also much quicker that you note the bits which are most useful and then turn that into writing. And so I write down quotes, and the idea of inventing a character and then making up what they say just feels like an act of lèse-majesté. I mean, so from time, because the thing is, my books are quite novelistic. I mean, there is a sort of dramaturgical aspect to them. That they are, in a way, quite sort of
well.
quite thriller-like, and there are characters, and so I borrow the tricks of fiction, but the method is strictly journalistic. It's strictly accurate. I think that's very, very important, and I sort of. Sometimes I think, oh yes, I must write a thriller, when the world gets calmer.
When is that going to be?
Unfortunately, now we're in a situation where the world is so dark and surrealistic, and you might even say eschatological. What is the point of making stuff up? Actually, because the true stories are the best stories. I mean, I've always believed that. I think it was a motto for a while used by Bailey Gifford or the Hay Festival or something. And it's, I mean, look at what's happening in America. We have a crazy guy who may or may not be a Russian asset, just qualifying that in case there are any lawyers listening, who, campaigns as an isolationist and an anti-war candidate who is unleashing hell. I mean, today it's Iran, yesterday it was Greenland, tomorrow it might be Greenland again, it could be Cuba, it's been Venezuela. And things are so unpredictable that I'm at full stretch just trying to interpret our crazy world as it is.
I mean, is it more difficult now to write about this war than it has been about wars in the past? Have things got more complicated and crazy recently?
That's a really interesting question, and it's one I've been pondering, because when I did Invasion, as you said in your intro, it came out in 22, and then I updated it for a paperback edition in 2023, published by Vivat in a Ukrainian edition, which I'm very proud of. I thought, okay, I've done a sort of first draft of history. I've done as definitive as I could make it book on Ukraine, and probably I won't write another one unless something fundamentally changes. And then there was a moment in October of 2024, when Kim Jong-un, the North Korean dictator, sent 12,000 North Korean Special Forces troops to Western Russia in the Kursk region to fight against Ukrainians. And my grandfather, actually, my grandfather's brother, so my great-uncle, had fought in the original Korean War in the 1950s, early 1950s, and been a prisoner of war of the Chinese. And the idea that now North Korean troops were fighting in Europe, fighting and dying in the fields and forests of Europe, just seemed astonishing. It just seemed a world out of order. And so that really was the genesis for my latest book, which is, again, it's about the war in Ukraine, but it's called Betrayal. But it's more about the end of the post-1945 system, imperfect though it was, of law, of rules, of basic precepts like self-determination, equality, whether you're a big country or a medium country like Ukraine or a superpower like America, that all that is gone, and that we're in this kind of nihilistic age of clashing armies and North Koreans stumbling through pine forests. And that's what I've been writing over the last year.
And you've spoken to some of those people, right?
I have. I mean, I saw the 2 North Koreans who were captured in Western Russia in prison in Kiev. They've seen very, very few people. They've done a handful of interviews. They're currently in sort of diplomatic limbo. And I mean, I won't say too much about it, but what was really striking was that even though they have, particularly the older one, they have a pretty sober understanding of what would befall them were they to go back to North Korea. But their brains, their souls are completely in North Korea still. And the 26-year-old POW had done various sort of sketches. He's a rather an accomplished artist. And he'd done sort of young Korean women, okay, but he'd also done Kim Jong-un, he'd done the ruling North Korean family, he'd done propaganda slogans. And I guess what I took away from that was that if you grew up in a totalitarian society, critical thought is it's just not possible. And it's relevant because if you look at Russia, I mean, this is another question. I mean, I don't want to talk about Russia endlessly, but clearly this is not, in my view, this is not Vladimir Putin's invasion against Ukraine. It's a Russian invasion because those involved, the scale, the number who have died, who are fighting, is enormous. And you have to ask yourself, why is that?
I mean, this is a point of similarity, I guess, with your book, Myroslav, because you also spoke to some POWs, some Russian soldiers. I mean, what was... What did that tell you about all this?
This book about 2 POWs, it's the most... I don't know. It's the most complicated episodes in this book for me, because I had a feeling like in Chernobyl. Several days ago, I visited Chernobyl because this April we will have a 40th anniversary of tragedy, and you have the same feeling that everything looks okay. Yes, but these invisible risks, yes, and you feel that their souls are poisoned, yes.
The Russians.
The Russians soldiers. They were just ordinary people. I have this privilege. I have really a lot of militaries who are my neighbors, my students, my friends, and so on. And we were working with Danilo Paulu, the photographer, on Bakhmut front direction. And he one of the militaries called us and said that I can help you to have a conversation with 2 POWs. Yes, and they brought us to a secret place, and we were talking with 2 of them. One of them was just mobilized, just ordinary person. We were talking about his wife who was pregnant. She was pregnant, and he knew this. Yes, and he joined Russian forces, and he was mostly he was not so interesting as a person. But the second one was a Wagner Group's member. And our officers said that it's the most interesting Wagner Group member in all their practice because he was clever and he was an author of poems. Yes, not very bad and not very good, yes, but the author of poems. And we were talking about great Russian culture, all these cliches and something like this. And his famous novel is Lolita, Nabokov's Lolita. And it was really interesting, yes, because very often we have this view that these people have no opportunity to choose something, yes. They are without faces, yes, without identities. But they really understand really a lot, yes. It was his choice, yes.
He believed.
He believed
in the project.
He said that, yes, he said all these things that I was just a medical worker and something like that. But it's the most, it's one of the most challenging things in this work, yes, when you understand that they know everything, they know this, yes. They are here just to kill you.
I found those passages absolutely fascinating, not least because of the way that you managed to describe those conversations. And this is what I want to ask both of you. You deal with sort of subjects that your readers are very unlikely to come across in their daily lives. You have to do a lot of explaining. And yet both of you do it so concisely and so accessibly without spending pages and pages on history, although you do have quite a lot of history, Myroslav, about Bakhmut, for instance, about the city and its former reincarnations. And you constantly have to explain the politics and the cultural significance of things, but you get the balance amazingly right. How do you do it? Who do you have in mind where you write about it? Your books are translated in different languages. Luke, yours is now in Ukrainian as well, but you were not writing it for Ukrainian audiences. What guides you in that kind of balance between telling, showing, and also explaining the background?
I mean, for me, what I try and do is I do the high politics. So I'm sitting down in Invasion and again twice in Betrayal with Volodymyr Zelensky, who I think he's, after Donald Trump, he's probably the most famous politician in the world, and in the minds of many, including me, I think is probably the leader of the free world, if such a thing still exists. So I have that, of course, the high politics and the kind of debased ideology in inverted commas from the Russian side at the heart of it. But what I enjoy most and what I try and do is just tell the stories of ordinary people as well. Yes, it's Caesar, but it's also the plebeians. It's also just people I meet on the front line, and sometimes that's by design. Whenever I go to the front line, I try and go and see the local mayor, because that's always a good way of finding out what's going on, as well as military brigades who are fighting there. But quite often the best and most memorable conversations I have are with people I meet. I mean, I'll just give you two quick episodes. When I was in Slavyansk, city I love, by the way, and know very well. I mean, I was there in 2014 when the undercover Russian forces took it. And they occupied it for 3.5 kind of crazy, murderous months and then were booted out. But Slavyansk is very much on the front line. And there's one place I love there, which is a salt lake just on the edge of the city. We decided after a day of interviews, we'd go and have a swim. This is in sort of late September. And we're driving there, and there was a kind of artillery crash with a shell landing nearby. Got to the beach, nobody had blinked. And then I just stripped off to my boxer shorts, started talking to some what's the word? Can I say older women? Is that okay? Am I allowed to say that? I mean, or some women, I don't know, whatever. And they were saying, yeah, have a swim. We don't care about the explosions. By the way, you should get some of that mud and put it on your knees because it's therapeutic, and in you go. And so there was a war, there were drones, there was death, and there were women bobbing in this salt lake, and a man reading a novel and selling grapes by the side of the road. And you want to capture that. And then just another quick scene when I was in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, which the Russians have been chewing into in recent months, although the Ukrainian forces have also been going forward as well. I mean, there's sort of to and fro. I met a guy who was the last person from his village to flee, and it just... This is all true. He was called Valentin, and Valentin had gone to see his friend Mykola, who was the other last guy from the village, and Mykola had disappeared. His chickens were dead. His house had been flattened, and then Valentin just walked for 8 hours because there was no road, there was no transport, through this kind of crater-pitted route with nothing. Which is where I found him, by the side of the road, and he was picked up by an evacuation charity I was working with. And I mean, he didn't ask for this. No one asked for this. Ukrainians didn't ask for this. And yet their homes are destroyed, their animals are dead, their lives are ruined, their memories are, well, not scrubbed, but abraded. And yet here they are, they're alive, and you can talk. And I just think telling those stories is so important, because if you watch the news, it's the sort of hyper-focused thing with a reporter with a microphone and a ruined building in the background. There's the kind of grammar of loss and conflict, which we're all familiar with. But the Ukraine war is... The war in Ukraine, the Russian war in Ukraine, is so big, it's so sprawling, it's so multifarious, that little rectangular model doesn't work. You need a book, you need poetry, you need art, and you just need a bigger frame to tell those stories.
Absolutely. You're both extremely skilled at describing the characters that you meet so vividly that I think they live with the reader for a long time. I certainly remember quite a few from both of your books. I mean, the one that's going to stay with me, Myroslav, I think, for a long time is Zhenya, with whom you engage quite a lot towards the end of the penultimate, non-penultimate, but almost last chapter. But I think it really lives on with the reader. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about some of the people that have stayed with you.
Yeah, but that's very interesting. But I know this guy who with grapes. Luke, I also met this guy several months ago in Slovyansk. He was selling grapes, and I bought 1 kilo. It costed 50 hryvnias, 1 pound.
And what was he reading?
Yeah, he was reading a book by Cuban author. I don't remember the name of this author, but it was just a translation of Cuban Republic author who they had some relations in Soviet Union. Yes, that's why he was reading this book. But this guy, I remember that he was in previous life he was something like scientist. He was That's why it's not something special. Yeah. It's a really complicated question about this balance, how to write about it, because very often me and Luke, we are meeting really vivid persons. Yes, that's why, and that's a problem for story. Yes, you need to find one person or several persons. Yes, and everybody is very how to say in this Aristotle's terms very good as persons as characters. Yes, before the Full-Skin War, I had this feeling that reality is not good enough for writing the story. And after the Full-Skin Invasion, I realized that very often reality now triumphs over literature. Yes, that's why very often it's a big question. Yes, how to write about somebody who has this story that could cost a big book. Yes, I think that it's because of this state of war. When we have really a lot of stories, we have really a lot of love and blood. The most common rhyme in Ukrainian language is krov lyubov. Do you know crow means blood?
Love,
yeah,
right?
blood and love. Yeah. Yes, it's like in English language in Eurovision songs, forever and ever together. All the songs are with these rhymes. In Ukrainian, I remember from my school, it's not a good rhyme. Yes, because it's a cliche. Yeah, but it means really a lot. It means that when we have this connection of Eros and Thanatos, we have these great stories, yes? And it's not a problem to find these stories. You should be near frontline. You should be in this city, yes, that is under shelling every day. That's why, for example, that's why it's not hard to find these characters, yes? It's really hard to make a story from this. That's why we were talking about Zhenya. It's my roommate from the university. I realized that one of my friends said that there is no books in Ukrainian now without stories about lost friends. Yes, about people that you lost, that you knew personally. Yes, for example, in Bakhmut. Bakhmut is dedicated to 3 persons. One of them is poet and painter who made a title of my first poetry book, Mykola Leonovich. The second person is Danilo, who was my student and who decided to join armed forces of Ukraine, and he died 1 month after our examination, and he had his examination trenches online. And the third person is Zhenya. He was a cultural anthropologist. His field was Vanuatu Islands, neo-religions, and this Oceania district. And it's about irreplaceable loss, yes? When can you imagine? Yes, okay. In Britain, you can imagine somebody who is an expert in this field of Vanuatu, but can you imagine somebody in Eastern Europe? Yes, I think that he was a single expert in this field. Yes, he published several articles in Australian and American journals, and these articles were the single articles from the authors from Eastern Europe. Yes, and he died in Bakhmut because he decided to join armed forces. That's why, yes, when we are writing about war now, we are writing about people who have everything, yes, who have this opportunity to see how we are talking in London, how somebody is drinking Aperol in Nizza, yes, but they are joining the armed forces, yes, they are fighting to protect their families, the democratic world. And for me, this is about, I really like ancient literature, so ancient tragedies, Odyssey, Iliad, and I read all these books now more and more and more. And I see that a lot of these plots, a lot of these characters, a lot of these episodes are really the same as in, for example, Iliad. Do you remember the son of the Troy king's son? Yes, who knows that he will die. Yes, because Achilles will die him. Yes, but he is going to have this battle because of his dignity, because he should show his city, yes, that he's protecting. He know about that he will die, yes, in this battle, but he doing this.
Yeah, sorry. I know you can ask us later for book recommendations, but I just finished Jan Martel's Son of Nobody, which is exactly that. It's a kind of pseudo invented version of the Iliad. It's called Son of Nobody is a kind of commoner Greek soldier fighting against the Trojans, and. Yeah, it's a brilliant book. It's fun and it's original, and there are conversations between soldiers. So Soad, the son of nobody, will then talk to a Trojan prince about he's going to kill him, and these conversations go across very, very, very many pages, and it's just fascinating because that's exactly what doesn't happen in Ukraine. That there's no conversation between the Ukrainian soldier or the Ukrainian drone operator and the Russian that is killed. I mean, that's why you were saying it was quite interesting for you to meet this Wagner guy and talk to him about Russian literature, because those conversations are very, very unusual, actually. Because no one, I mean, I've talked to medics treating frontline casualties, and it's very, very rare these days for a Ukrainian soldier to be shot. It's all drone injuries. It's all fragments from explosions. So that there is no dialogue. There is no conversation between invader and defender. It's just this kind of remote technological 21st century war. But ultimately, you're right. Ultimately, it's like the Iliad.
Myroslav, I wanted to follow up on your story. You've been writing about people that you know, people that you have lost to the war. I mean, I'm sure Luke also, you know Ukraine very well. I'm sure you know people who have been killed. You know places that have been destroyed. When you're dealing with this kind of material, when you're dealing with this story of loss and destruction, how possible is it to be balanced, let's say? And the reason I'm asking is a line in Myroslav's book, which is about nuance. You say near the beginning of the book, having a nuance is a privilege that people in the war zone don't necessarily have. How do you see that in your own work? Do you try to find nuance in your own work, or do you find that this is kind of something that is undesirable in some way?
Yeah, I'm thinking about this. Maybe if to talk about my second nonfiction book, Lists, I have more this reflection and more essays on the reality. But in Bakhmut, I'm talking about a very simple thing that we have no opportunity to have a deal with these nuances. Yes, I realized that the single way that I can work is just to be my eyes and ears. Yes, just to record. There are two main rules of reportage. The first one is just say truth. Yes, and the second is do not harm. Yes, and for me that's enough now. Yes, when we are talking about the story that is has no these nuances, yes, we could say that this story is not vivid, this story is not clear. Yes, but my idea is that when we are talking about working in this way, we are talking not about complicity but clearness. Yes, really, nuances and reflection is a big privilege, yes. And sometimes we have no this privilege. Urgency is the main thing, yes. But it's not about transforming truth, yes. For example, Black Square by Malevich is black, yes. But if to look it closer to us, if to visit museum, if you have this opportunity, you will see small crashes. You will see 40 shades of dark, of black. Yes, but it is black. Yes, but you will see all these nuances. Yes, for me, it's about the moment. It's about timing. Yes, it's about the moment. It's about lack of tools. Yes, and it's about this existential state. The existential state means that you have no opportunity to choose. Yes, if you are under risk, you could just see white and black, yes? And it's about militaries, it's about people who live nearby. Yes, if you have this distance, you will have really a lot things to say, yes, about history, about sites and something like this. But if to talk about urgency, if to talk about clearness, and if to talk about how to deal with reality now, how to solve some problems, yes, you have no this opportunity.
I got two things to add. I mean, one is for me as a journalist that there is this paradigm which is really beaten into your head from the time that you're a journalism student of both sides. It's the sort of basic method. For example, if you're writing a story about an oligarch, you know, for legal reasons, you have to go to the oligarch before you publish your expose of their secret wealth and ask them for a quote or a comment and so on. I mean, that there's sort of both sidesism, and it's very much the BBC broadcasting model that one side says this and one side says the other. The problem is in a situation like the Russian invasion of Ukraine, both sidesism doesn't work anymore as a model. It's broken because what we're dealing with is Russian fascism. It's a totalizing project to destroy Ukraine, to de-Ukrainize Ukraine, to exterminate its people first and foremost, but also its poetry, its history, its architecture, its ideas, its philosophers, really raise everything. And so, I mean, I see my obligation as a writer and a journalist is to the truth. And which doesn't mean that I become an activist or a participant or anything like that. But really, you have to, as Myroslav was saying, I mean, you have to kind of bear witness. Actually, and also you have to be there. I mean, good method to my mind is not saying, the Kremlin says this. Good method is actually to go to the front line, so close as you are able, within reasonable parameters, and talk to people who are there, both soldiers and civilians. And the other thing I was just going to say was about war, and maybe this sounds a bit odd, but I think I write my best stuff. I've done a lot of war, by the way. I've been covering war for 25 years, beginning with the war in Afghanistan first time round, and then Iraq, and then Syria. Then I was in Ukraine in 2014 when the Kremlin began its kind of covert military takeover. And the human mind, the human memory is actually non-linear. I mean, you think it's a chronology, but actually it isn't. Your brain doesn't work like that. It's episodic. It's impressionistic. And every single trip I've done to Ukraine, to the front line in the last 5 years, I can remember in minute detail. And there are large chunks of time when I was in London taking a break, which I've forgotten. And I can remember how it looks visually. I can remember the birds I saw, the trees, the conversations I had, the sky, whether it was pewter or muddy or white or, overcast. And there is something about that danger which, I mean, you wouldn't wish it, but it makes everything hyper-real. And it means that your work is better. I don't know. Do you agree, Myroslav? I mean, I'm not saying that one should like it or wish for it, but do you feel you do your best work in time of war, or you feel it's the same as before?
I can say yes, I try to be just focused on my work now. I can say something about myself. Sometimes I think that it's better just, sometimes it looks like, do you remember this question when journalist or somebody, I don't remember whom, asked André Matisse, who he was under occupation in Provence, an old French painter, and they asked him about what was he working in time of Second World War, and he said, I was drawing fishes.
Sure.
Yeah. And sometimes I think that it's not a bad answer. Yes, we are just the main idea is just to find yourself in this situation. Yes, and to be sure that everything you are doing makes yourself feel that you are in the right place. Yes, that you are doing everything you want and you can. Yeah, maybe this way.
It's very interesting what you say about memory being nonlinear and fragmented. Of course, it is. But the work of reportage is about here and now, mostly. And the analysis that you put in your books in this extremely fast-changing world can become outdated quite quickly. I actually revisited the conclusions of your book just on the way here to the studio.
Optimistic.
And they are heartbreakingly optimistic.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hope. And I just wonder, Luke, whether in this book, there is still space for optimism, the one that you've just completed.
I mean, yeah, there is. I mean, this latest book, Betrayal, is global, but it does end on an optimistic note insofar as, I mean, pretty much everyone from Friedrich Merz to Keir Starmer to Volodymyr Zelensky to J.D. Vance agrees that the old system is no longer there, that international law clearly is meaningless. Where we have Donald Trump criticizing the Pope. I mean, we're in a very strange place, but I think the last chapter of my book is it begins with Davos, the World Economic Forum meeting in January 2026, where Mark Carney basically sort of set out how middle-sized states, including Ukraine, can survive in a jungle. Basically, and his answer, or one answer, was to make allies, to have an imaginative diplomacy. And just as I was wrapping up this book, Volodymyr Zelensky was zipping around the Middle East, signing interceptor drone contracts, defense contracts with a whole bunch of Arab kingdoms and petrostates. That was not on my bingo card. And the way that basically Ukraine has been transformed into a kind of technological military superpower, where even America is asking for its help, actually is one of the kind of supreme ironies of the situation. So, yeah, there is gloom, but I don't think we should be completely pessimistic. And I'm about Ukraine, crazy that seems, I still feel pretty optimistic. And also, I feel more optimistic whenever I'm in Ukraine than I do sitting in London. And I think there is a danger of armchair punditry and people making gloomy prognostications from afar, whereas really they should probably go to Kiev and get drunk in a bar.
Good advice.
I mean, I guess I should turn this topic over to you, Myroslav. I mean, I think
I'm optimistic.
I mean, I can
Not
share what Luke says. You know, whenever I go to Ukraine, I also feel there is, of course, you know, it's a horrific situation, but there is this sense of energy and togetherness that people have, and there's something. You know, it's easy to come from outside as a foreigner and be inspired by this, but you know, we have to be honest. It does feel quite inspiring in some ways. But I guess it looks different from inside. I mean, how are you feeling right now about the situation?
But it's also about adaptation. Yes, as I said several days ago, I was in Chernobyl zone and I met here a woman, 86 years old, and she lives here. And this logic of catastrophes is the same everywhere. Yes, you can adapt to every circumstances, and that's why Ukrainians are more optimistic. Because it's possible to live. Yes. But if to talk about my view, for me that's the most challenging thing. This dealing with these dramatic changes of the faces of the cities. Yes, we began with Slovyansk of 2014. And I really remember I visited Slovyansk in 2014-15, and also I visited Sviatohirsk. Do you know Sviatohirsk? Yes, Sviatohirsk, it's a North Donbas city. It's not city, a small town. And it's not like all the Donbas cities. It's not industrial. It's a small town with churches, forests, fields, and lakes, and so on. And I visited Slovyansk several months ago, and most of churches are destroyed. Most of forests are burned. I saw explosions and on a horizon. Yes, and everything is ruined. Yes, and this dramaturgy is very, very harming for person who is working with this. Yes, because you see these changes. Yes, I remember, for example, Bakhmut in 2023 and Pokrovsk for us who were working in Bakhmut was like I don't know. We were cleaning our car in Pokrovsk and drinking coffee, pizza.
Good pizza.
Yeah, and this nice park and lake and everything like this. And I visited Pokrovsk this time last year, and it was totally horrible. Yes, we had no opportunity to walk in this park. Yes, the only opportunity to be in Pokrovsk was just to be in basement, but before that you needed to reach Pokrovsk, yes, with all this huge amount of drones and launch bomb explode near us, and it's totally horrible. It's totally horrible that cities, not just cities, but small cafes where you sitting several days ago now are destroyed. I remember, for example, several months ago, me and photographer Vyacheslav Vorotensky, we visited Kostyantynivka. It was not possible to reach this city by car, because if you are a car, you are the first target. Yes, and our car was in a village near Kostyantynivka, and after that we had 2 kilometers walk. Yes, and we saw maybe 30 or 50 drones, and it was really horrible. It's really horrible when Kostyantynivka, who was also like a base. Yes, there were some hotels. There were some. I remember this park. All these places. They are totally destroyed. And okay, yes, we are very optimistic. We see that it's the 5th year of full-scale invasion. We are still alive. People who lost almost everything. Yes, there are houses, some soldiers. I have really a lot of stories with the soldiers who lost their limbs. Yes, and I'm asking them, what is your biggest loss? Yes, and their answers are not hands and legs. Yes, their answer are the time that I could spend with my family, my comrades, and something like this. And I understand that, yes, humanity, Ukrainians have a big this resilience, amount of resilience forces, yes, but we see this dramaturgy of reality, yes. Now I'm working on a project about frontline cities, and we published several reportages about Kostiantyniivka, Družkivka, Kherson, yes. And for example, in previous autumn, we visited Kherson, Kramatorsk, Slovyansk, and now these cities are not the same as they were several months ago. Yes, it's totally different cities. For example, Slovyansk and Kramatorsk. Now FPV drones are in these cities. Yes, and it makes the work of journalist not possible. Yes, you can't work in these cities when there are FPV drones. You could use you could use drone detector, yes, but it doesn't work when there are FPV drones.
Which I think makes the sort of work that you share with us all the more important, because you manage to tell the stories of places that are no more, but we can revisit them in your work, and we can still hear their stories. Thank you for doing that.
Yes, thank you both so much. Unfortunately, I mean, we could keep going for forever on this topic, I think, but we have to wrap up. But before we do that, we ask all our guests on the podcast to give us a recommendation of a book that they think our readers should read about Ukraine, not your own book. So please, Luke, maybe I can ask you to go first.
I've read some very many brilliant books. So the one I've chosen is actually not by Ukrainian, but it's by someone who was married to Ukrainian, called Julian Evans. It's a book about Odessa called Undefeatable. And what I like about it is that Julian has a sort of long tail, by which I mean he started visiting Odessa in the 90s as a BBC radio producer, then fell in love with a woman from Odessa. They had 2 kids. He would holiday there in the noughties. He had in-laws. He is the most brilliant prose stylist. I mean, he just evokes Odessa in its kind of mafia mode, in its post-mafia mode, in all of its kind of beauty and wit and warmth. He uses the Ukrainian word kolorit. Did I say that right? K-O-L-O-R-I-T. And then, the marriage doesn't work out in the end after 15 years. But then he comes back as a volunteer, and he's a bit of a petrol head. He drives cars. But it's just a dark, sunny, dark portrait of an extraordinary city that's written from the heart, but with filigree clarity. It's a super book.
Yeah, it's a great book, and we haven't had him on the podcast, but we do have a recording of an event we did with Julian about Odessa on the Ukrainian Institute
YouTube channel. You can find it and watch it. Yeah,
yeah, it's a great book. Great recommendation. Myroslav, how about you?
My recommendation could be a little bit strange, but I'm a poet also. Yes, that's normal, and for me, my recommendation is the Patriarch of Kievan Caves Monastery. Yes, it's a 13th century book by the monks of Laura Monastery.
Which century, Myroslav? 13th century. You're recommending a 13th century book.
Yes,
available online.
That's really interesting. Sometimes funny, sometimes strange. It's about life of these monks of monastery in the center of Kyiv. You could visit this monastery now. It was was they built this monastery in the 11th century, 100 years before Moscow was built. And yes, this book it's a tales. Yes, it's about. It's really interesting. I really recommend you. It's not a joke. Yes, but it's also make this discussion on Slavic world more clear. Yes, where is Moscow? Where is Kiev? Yes, and where is literature? Where is great literature? Where is because Russians have really not a lot of, for example, medieval times literature, Baroque times literature. Yes, and they say that they are great literature. Yes, how could they be so great? Yes, if they have no medieval and Baroque literature. Yeah?
Sorry, Myroslav, what is the book called in English?
The Patriarch of Kiev and Kiev's Monastery.
And just a reminder to our listeners that we will have the titles of the books recommended and our guests' books listed in the description of each episode.
I want to read it.
And we'll make sure we'll put all the available links to the books if there are such links available. Look, Myroslav, thank you so much for your time, your thoughts, and of course, thank you for your own books and the recommendations.
We hope that all our listeners have enjoyed this conversation as much as we have. Once again, remember that there are other episodes of this podcast that you can check out. Please do have a look, leave a like, share them, and of course, look out for future episodes as well.
Please spread the word about this podcast, and most importantly, keep reading about Ukraine.